Hello, everyone. Welcome to another week at Citizen Development Week, another round of discussion on how citizen development transforms organizations. Today's topic is going to be about enabling safe and sustainable citizen development, the best practices and governance models that organizations can follow. Today, we are joined by Guru Prasad Pami, who is the head of customer success at Quixi, Jesse Shea, who's CEO and co-founder at Agile Soft, and Mei Lin, who's IT business analyst at Shell. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Awesome. Uh,
Hello, thank you.
Great. Let's get started. Today's discussion is going to be 45 minutes of quick Q&A, and the last 15 minutes would be reserved for questions and further comments. And Jesse, I want to start with you. Can
Sure.
you explain what is citizen development governance and why is it essential for organizations to establish it?
Okay. Um, I hope everyone joined the session today already have some ideas about what is citizen development, right? And and I know that is also part of this the latest drive of the local no-code technologies. And in a way, this is actually the way that we talk to a lot of organizations, and this is really the digital transformation initiative in a way that if you talk to a lot of leaders running the digital transformation program today, and as reported that more than 70% of them are saying that their program are not running as expected. And if you ask them what's the number one reason, you'd be surprised that to hear that they all say they have a shortage of developers, right? So that's really driving the system development. And the other thing, if you think about, I always say that in the past 40 years, there's a lot of technology innovation, right? I think we all heard of this semiconductor, how semiconductor has changed the game, changed the technology, changed how everything was built. In the last 40 years, there are so many evolutions of hardware technology innovation. But if you think about, talk about software development, we kind of stuck in the same old paradigm in the last 40 years. Even we have so-called agile methodology today, it really doesn't change the paradigm. It's really just chopping a very large waterfall development into a lot of small waterfalls, right? So, and I think this is really where, and then if you looked at the development, right, it's really every time is more about business subject matter expert who know the requirements. They have to translate requirements to developers, right? So, but now if we are able to, we are talking about system developers are now the one that they do not have to be actual developers. They are the one know the requirements, and if they can actually create application, that's a new paradigm, right? And I think, and this new paradigm representing is there's a huge promise and potential, and I think is really needed in the next the next digital business era. But the thing is, how do we, I think the topic, how do we really establish that, right, and govern that? And in a way, right, no, this is really a transformation, right? Just I know every other transformation initiative, we got to think about change management in terms of people, the cultures, right? And so because of that, the governance is very, very important because we cannot think about just say a lot of local no code. We say, oh, you can create application fast. And as a matter of fact, right, I think this is a huge opportunity, but there are actually two examples in the history we can draw to say why this is important to think about governance from the beginning.
Mhm.
I think sometimes I say the first local no code to empower citizen development actually already took place in 1990s, Lotus Notes, right? And as to be honest, right, I mean, we work with a lot of enterprise, and many times it's involving migrating the Lotus Notes applications that they built. Okay, and you'd be surprised to hear that we are talking about tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of those applications get created by in different corners in the company, by different department, by different users, and that's like going to a sprawl, right? So basically, we do not want like this is a power that now I think we have an opportunity, right, to practice this development, but it's how do we go not go into sprawl? A more recent examples. I think a lot of companies have used to have SharePoint on-prem, right? They have SharePoint installed on-prem. That's also another example. A lot of companies have that, a lot of SharePoint, little application workflows everywhere, right? Going to
Mhm.
Sprite in different departments. And so I think this is why, right? It's so important that we need to manage this, think about the governance from the beginning as a program, but also set up a center of excellence. And because it's going to be cultural, right, we're going to involve in changing the culture from IT-centric development only now to also have system development and how the two work together, right? So in some of our customers, we actually seeing them, they have a COE set up, center of excellence set up on the IT side. They have a center of excellence set up on the system development. So they have two COEs collaborating together, right? And this is so important to think about this as a life cycle, not just about development, right? The whole life cycle. And the thing is, this is especially important for a lot of organizations that are very highly regulated, right? Running business critical operations. Right. So I'd like to say that's kind of just open, right, to kind of share our views in terms of why this is so important, and not, don't just get in and start working on something. You can do a pilot program, but you really have to have that higher level program level, COE level thinking, right, to about that end-to-end life cycle management.
Mhm. Got it. That's really interesting. So now that we know why citizen development governance is so important, Guru Prasad, can you share what are the different governance models that are available for citizen development and how organizations can determine what best suits their needs?
Yeah, sure, that's it. So basically, the governance means like either it will be full control or no control. So like different people will call it differently. So if you just see the governance models, so there will be authority with one place. So there will be authority distributed. So there will be an authority at the central location, and there will be authority at the distributed location. There are different governance models available. So when the citizen development initiative is initiated in any organization, so the key questions that come into our mind is that who will be the citizen developer. So these are the primary things that we need to consider when we are selecting the governance models. So then, how exactly the citizen development should happen? So where exactly the citizen development should happen? So when it should happen, and what type of applications that the citizen developer the citizen development initiatives should happen. So when we are considering all these things, there are different types of models that are available. So basically, before considering the what type of model that is suitable for the organization, so first of all we need to understand what are the areas of a governance that need to be in place. So one is the first one is the picking up the right use case for this low code no code platform, and then establishing the center of excellence where we need to identify apart from IT, so different professionals into one center of excellence, and then we need to just align these requirements and how exactly these requirements need to be taken, what type of use cases need to be like considered, all those things need to be understood. Then after that, there should be a governance in the area of design. So especially when it comes to the uh, design, so how exactly the data model should be designed, how exactly the integration design should happen. All these things need to be considered, considering the security constraints. Then after that, we need to consider the infra governance also. Then after that, we need to consider change management, like how exactly these applications developed by different citizen developers need to be maintained, so that there won't be any issues with respect to the scalability or with respect to the change management. So then during the adoption and maintenance, so how exactly uh, the communication with the citizen developers, how exactly the administration with respect to the maintainability of the applications need to be maintained, that also need to be considered. Like for example, establishing different tools for tracking the issues, establishing different SLAs. If at all the citizen development applications, if at all they're having any issues, so that need to be resolved as soon as possible. So then what are the key performance indicators, and then we need to have regular feedbacks through surveys, and then we need to encourage different citizen developers to submit their new ideas or improvements. And then finally, the governance will happen so through proper reviews or audits, to ensure that there won't be any risks with respect to the organization. So these type of areas that we need to consider. Considering all these things, I can just say that in the initial stages of the citizen development, like we need to just get the some professional expertise from the IT departments, and then they can provide some professionals and into the business units, and then they can start developing the solutions for the business units. They'll be directly reporting to the business unit heads, and then once the organizations grows, so then uh, anyone can in the inside the department, the end users can start developing these applications. Then there will be a necessity of center of excellence, where the experts from IT and then different departments, then they will guide and nurture, train the end users as a citizen developers. So then finally, so there will be each department will be having their own experts, and then the center of excellence will collaborate with them and in building the uh, complex solutions in collaboration with citizen developers. And then from the center of excellence, these individual department champions, then they can just uh, take forward their skills to the actual end users to improve their skills in citizen development. So basically, so like if you take the maturity levels of this organization during the initial stages of the organization, we can start simple like a hierarchical way, like so like it is a top down approach, where the control will be at one place, and then they will be deciding so what type of applications need to be developed, who has to develop, and what need to be developed, when need to be developed, all those things. As the organization grows, and then uh, it as the citizen development initiatives spread to the different departments, and as the multiple applications grow in the citizen development, so then the concept of innovation will come, and then at that point of time we can go for the hybrid models, where there need not be a like central authority, or at the same time like there need not be like at the low touch governance. So it can be a hybrid model based on the organizations. So what I suggest is that like in the initial stages of the citizen development journey, so it can be like a minimal governance can be there, and then during the adoption or scaling and then innovation stages, so then we can go for the strict governance model. So
Understood. Thank you for sharing this, Guru Prasad. Jesse, may you have anything further to add to this?
Yeah, that was a lot of great information just offered by Guru. And I think that one thing to think about, right, because this is going to be a journey, as we talk about, this is going to be a journey, it's going to be a transformation, and it's going to involve people, culture, right, change management. The adaptation is very important, right? So how we adapt that to make sure that it's sustainable. It's a journey that you will lead to sustainability. And 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 in a way, right, we many times we talk about how do you start small, right? How do you scale, right?
Mhm.
So from that perspective, we can also think about the different governance model, right? You depending on what is your, what would be the journey, right? What are you attacking? And typically, right, everybody will try to, maybe starting with how can system develop, the different users, the different corner, different department of the company, right? How can they improve their personal productivity, right? So that could be, you could start from there, and then, and I'm kind of sharing what we have, what we have observed, right, happen
Mhm.
with the customer that we work with, right? So they start with, they have, certain developers started working on improving their personal productivity, right? And then the certain developers now in that department or in that business unit actually now with the center of excellence of the, under that, and they actually started creating, right, become self-sufficient to create the application they need for themselves, right? So when you get to that level, obviously governance, right, the complexity, everything, it will gradually increase, right? Will gradually expand as well. And we even are seeing now, right? I mean, when you get different, BUs and different departments, they start to be able to do that, become somewhat self-sufficient, right? Of course, at the same time, they were working with a COE coming from the IT side, because IT is the one that managed the platform, right? The technology platform, the local platform. And they actually started, we're seeing that they take that to the next level. They'll be able to start creating cross-functional applications,
Mhm.
right? And so I mean, that journey, right? That journey that you will see the governance model you start, right? And you may start gradually expand, right? Same thing as we mentioned, we talk about the transformation. We're gonna manage the change management to the cultural people, right? The same thing, right? The governance model will also gradually expand as same thing will gradually grow, and then with its own journey as well.
Mhm. Got it. And May, you're a part of the IT team at Shell. So, what role should the IT department play in citizen development governance, and how they collaborate, effectively with business users and citizen developers?
Yes, this is a interesting question because it's my day-to-day work, and I am a IT member and also a DIY coach. We called citizen development in Shell as DIY, and I am the DIY coach. And I view the IT role as crucial ally to the CD program, the Citizen Development Program, because our responsibility includes. Guiding the developers on, on governance models and risk assessments, providing an IT perspective on agile project, design thinking, and we help the developers to define their value use case and choose the right path for development, suggesting solutions for pain points in the process while ensuring that no tools are duplicated. I mean, for the same goal, right? I mean, we as IT have this overview of the applications already implemented, and in order to not duplicate applications, we can guide them on this. And additionally, we acknowledge the governance issues within our community, our local community, and we can challenge the DIY team, the citizen developer central team, uh, um, uh, to enhance our experience with the citizen development. I mean, the DIY team built all the governance, all the risk assessments, which is really essential to support us. But they may not anticipate all the scenarios that we face. And sometimes when we face situations that don't align or doesn't make much sense within the boundaries of the risk assessments. Uh, our duty is to reach out to the DIY team, to collaborate with them, to enhance our ways of working, maybe to redesign the questions regarding the risk assessment, or to redesign the boundaries of the zoning assessment, the zoning risk. And this partnership is valuable as it enables continuous improvement and drives successful digital transformation within the DIY inside Shell. Moreover, the DIY codes, we as IT team, we are accountable to organize two training sessions, boot camps, hackathons, which very interesting type of gamification to upskill and empower the community to become change makers via low code, no code development.
Interesting. And DIY coach is a super cool title to have as well. I've never seen any company have that before. That's really interesting. And Jesse, you had brought up IT departments earlier. So do you have anything further to add to this?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like we see this is kind of functioning. It could be different, right? Depending on the size of the organization you work with, right? From the mid-size to Fortune 100, right? And so from IT, perspective, right? It was very interesting. As a matter of fact, in one of the Fortune 100, um, and I think I just saw Vivek make the comments on the comment there about the federated model, right? When we talk about how do you can go your system development program from empower the individual, right? Individual system developer to be like May was saying DIY, right? They can be able to create application to improve their productivity, and gradually now they can start working on their departmental build, and then they can start working on cross-functional, but it's all facilitated by IT. In a way, IT sets up that IT owns a platform. They have a COE, and they work with the COE of the or the system development COE, and they define what should be the guardrails, what should be the permissions, and many times that can actually be different based on different type of applications you are building, right? Because you're building HR application, building finance application, building different application. There's a different levels of governance. I mean, different levels of compliance and things, right? So so in a way, and that's really where IT coming. And it was very interesting, right? We think, right, we've been working together and also together with PMI to promote this, to advocate this, right? And we think we have to be the one to go to them and help them paint that picture. I was very surprised to see one of the Fortune 100 customers that actually came up with say, here's our blueprint, right? And it's come up with from IT. And I think that's the most interesting, right? And they say this is how we see the blueprint. That we see three pillars, right? This is IT. This is what we used to be, but now we can actually support BU, and this is on this side here is actually system developers, right? And so and that's actually a very good validation or even a very large organization now they are seeing the vision, and even IT is actually the one that's seeing how that actually, in a way, is gonna help the organization to drive into a hybrid development model for the next era.
Got it. Uh, Thank you for sharing this, JC. And Guru Prasad, I want to ask you this: how can organizations balance risk tolerance with project complexity when selecting a governance model for citizen development?
Yeah. So, like Jesse mentioned, so like any organization, when they are initiating the citizen development program, so they need to start small. So at the point of time, so they will be at the department level, and the applications will be like local applications, and the decision making will be at the department level itself. And then the security will not be that issue, and then the citizen development program will go for some to some extent. And then as we grow within the organization, so like as the citizen development grows, so the governance and then all those things will come into picture. For example, I will tell an example of some of the implementations from one of our customers. So they started like at department level. So at one department, so they started a local application, and then uh, the IT department has provided them with the like experts of the citizen development, and then trained the department, and then they developed the whatever the use case at the department level. And then after successful completion of that one, so they moved it to the second department, and then like that they scaled. But what the challenge here comes is that, so there should not be any redundancy in the data models, all those things. What will happen is that if at all the governance structures are not in place in the beginning itself, when we are planning to scale, so what will happen is that, so if those governance models are not in place, there will be a duplication, there will be a redundancy, there will be issue with respect to the scalability. So, for example, the production department has developed a use case to to calculate the productivity of each worker. So then the HR department has done another use case to mark the attendance of each worker. So what happened is that workers databases are two different applications. So there is a redundancy. So there will be a maintainability issues. So basically when you are scaling, so when you are planning to scale, so then we should have a clear cut objectives at the organization level. Those objectives need to be mentioned to the center of excellence, and then the IT department and the center of excellence, they need to formulate the guidelines. So few things can be compromised, few things cannot be compromised. Like each and every person cannot have the right to create any data or database. There should be set of standards that need to be followed. So similarly, when we are scaling uh, without compromising any security or any other issues, so we need to have some set of guidelines. So that we need to train all citizen developers. So the IT's role will come here. So where the IT department has to train on all the guidelines and then standards, best practices. So to all the citizen developers, so that they will follow the same pattern. So otherwise, what will happen is that each application will look differently, and there won't be uniform UI guidelines, there won't be uniform security guidelines, and there will be a risk at the end of the program. So that's why what I feel is that when they are scaling, when they are at the beginning of the stage, so it won't be that importance to have the governance. We will be having a low touch governance, but as we are moving ahead in the maturity model, like from like experimentation to adoption to innovation, so then slowly the governance model should be in place. So and the if without that, so there will be a chaos, and then we'll be ending up in like chaos in the citizen development program.
Right. So having clear objectives is the key here for
Yes, yes.
organizations. Yeah. Thank you. And Jesse, we were talking about different governance models that are there. What are the critical components of a successful citizen development governance framework?
Thank you. And Guru and May actually mentioned quite a few very important points earlier. As a matter of fact, we talk about, I mean, even the previous question about project complexity, right? And that has a lot to do with, this, the governance aspect. And as we mentioned that, we really want to think about as a program also an end-to-end life cycle management. It's not purely just development. And so starting from the life cycle, right? The type of things I think very relevant to what May was saying earlier. Right? You have maybe you have a project initiation or ideation, right? Even you start, someone started thinking about something, right? How do you be able to go through the process of making sure that you don't duplicate, right? Or sometimes you may not be duplicating. It's I have a lot of reuse. I can actually reuse a lot of maybe design patterns or the different components, right? So because of that, you promote consistency, you promote maintainability, you also promote quality as well, right? So you're starting from that initiation, ideation, and then, but if anyone get now formally sanctioned out to be a potential project to be built, right? That component, then we may want to get into assess the business value, right? The risk, and so go through that analysis, right? That could be that actually could be, bring people from different, different part of the company, right? That's why we started kind of going back to the COE concept now, right? That's where you have people, you be able to really the COE of the system development COE will assess that, right? With participant from different part of the business on the business value and risk analysis. And after that, we may also want to assess that as a suitability, right? For example, is this application is going to be globally applicable, right? Or is actually going to be specific to a certain region or certain country, right? Because due to different regulations, you are going to take a lot of those into consideration as well. And because all of those, right, all of those have a lot to do with the governance and sort of risk management, right? Because you don't want to build something later on, then you are not achieving, right? Not achieving, the objective, right? So once you get through those now, then I think we can quickly, then potential we see what our customer do is now they start to be able to decide, is this going to be a project can actually be suitable to be built by system developers, okay, either at the individual level, at the department or BU level, or this people project will be built with IT assisted, right? Will be still built by system developers, but you'll be IT assisted, right? So that's another component going there. And then that's when we start getting into the development now, right? You go to development now, it's not gonna be linear. And and this is what I want really want to make sure that right we understand this this end to end is not a linear process. It's not like every new product development or creative, right? Anything to do with creative. System developers say everything to do with creative, or it's innovation and create and the creative, right? Anything was creative, this is not linear, right? Because basically the journey could be dynamic, right? So we started getting to design, development, deployment. That could be, like I say, that could be actually recurring, right? Because you continuously go back and optimize because we're creating, right? And then once you created that now, we need a component such as you need to think about how we're gonna support that, right? The thing is, we don't want to create a lot of applications, but you cannot maintain and support, and most importantly, continuously improve them at scale, right? You don't want to create a lot of monolithic application, but you ended up, right? Everyone's different. You just cannot manage them at scale, right? Because that's another thing. When you get to that, then that's a classic example. You're creating a lot of technical debt, as a matter of fact, right? So because all those now become the burden of IT also, right? So eventually, right? Because eventually, so a lot of this component, right? I think the life cycle, right? So I look at the component kind of coming from the life cycle perspective, and which is the life cycle with those components in place, then we have a foundation be able to implement a sustainable governance.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Jesse. And Malin, I want to ask you about this. So we see one of the common criticism that we see with low code, no code tools is that they're not scalable or they're not secure. So how can you share how organizations can ensure the scalability and security of citizen development initiatives?
Okay. To create an effective and secure operating model, it is important to establish clear boundaries. For instance, business critical process, SOX compliance requirements, or applications that handle competitively sensitive information should have proper controls in place, or it may even be necessary to prohibit citizen developers from working on such projects. I mean, only IT can deliver this kind of initiative. And to determine the appropriate level of control for each application, you need to run the risk level assessment, and higher risk applications will require tighter controls to minimize the potential impact of any security breaks or other issues. And we also have examples of risks associated with data management, including sensitive and personal data, the confidentiality of the information, or third-party access to the application, as well the location of the data lake or workspace. Um, and we have to assess all these to understand whether it will be fit which zoning model, which zoning model will be fit. Like we have the free zoning model in Shell, we call it the green zone. That it means the application is a low complexity solution, and the system developer is able to carry out all the work and is allowed to develop the app with fewer controls implemented. Should be simple individual routine process automation. For example, doesn't process any personal data or small group of people will assess it. It is appropriate for beginners on the citizen developer journey to start to understand the power of local no code. And we also have the Amber Zone, which is the assisted path in PMI. The green zone is fast track in the PMI's vision. And the Amber Zone, the system developer needs to bring the IT expert for specific tasks, and some controls will need to be put in place, like user access management, audit logging, etc. And it means that it is a medium complexity, and maybe external parts are assessing the application, or the application could have integration with another platform like a Salesforce application, or the entire business will use the tool, uh, or the process will process confidential uh, as that data as legal or regulatory data, for example. And last, we have the red zone, that is IT delivery, and is only allowed to professional developers where the complexity is high, and the data probably is the most confidential, or the entire organization will assess it. It will be enterprise application, and or a business critical process is being impacted. So we
Got it.
have these
Yep.
zones at Shell.
Awesome. Thank you. So, Guru Prasad and Jesse, do you have anything to add to this?
Yeah. So and I think what May actually shared the real use case, right? And I think very much aligned with what we talked about, going through the life cycle, going through that, assess the from the ideation, right, all the way to assess the value, and then but most important is assess the complexity, right, and then be able to and based on the complexity, and that's when IT be able to have the different layer of governance model. I think this is really where the other very important concept to bring in, right? Because we talk about governance, but really, as I say, this is not about building one type of applications, one type of use cases, right? For example, we know one of the Fortune 100 customers, they build more than 2,000 applications running the global operations. It's like we're talking about at least like hundreds or over 1,000 use cases, right? And as we mentioned that we through working with that, we also learn, as May also mentioned, that different type of applications, right? Or whether you're gonna have just an individual productivity, or you're actually gonna have an integration now, integration to what type of system and what kind of data you'll be accessing, right? You even integrate a different system, different data, right? You need to access in the system. That also determines the governance, right? So it's very important, right, in the way to be able to ensure system development in to can really become something an enterprise-wide impact, right? And then we need to make sure that safety, the governance. So it's a very important to have the governance designs, especially coming from the local platform, right? From supporting that to enable IT have the flexibility, right, to be able to set up the different guardrails, different, the different the guidance, right, and to fit all the use cases to have a governance, right, is layered, right? So you provide layers of governance. So you give that permutational combinations for IT to be able to configure that, right? Set up different guardrails specific for maybe individual system developers, or maybe for a group of system developers are creating application for certain type of application, and the complexity based on whether the integration or the use cases.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Jesse. Uh,
So I would like to add a few 2 points here, Sudarshan.
yeah, please go ahead.
So basically, when we are when we need to scale the application, so we need to be very clear in the beginning of the project itself, like what are the clear-cut objectives. So if at all we are going to make it as a cross-functional, cross-departmental applications, means then the data structures, the design standards will be one way we'll be designing. So, or when we are going to just replicate this application at the different locations, we'll be designing in a different way. So basically, so based on our objective, our design guidelines or design standards, that accordingly we'll be designing the solution. So without that, if at all, without clear cut objectives, we are just starting the application and then again we want to scale it up, means we may end up in reaching the bottlenecks, and then we will be ending up with a bad design, so which will not be suitable at the enterprise level application. So that's why we should be very clear in the beginning of the project itself what should be the objective of this solution, and then how far we are going to scale the solution. So accordingly we need to plan.
Got it. I think we have just time for one more question for me to sneak it in. So I'm just going to leave it open on the floor, and anybody can answer it. So, what common risks are associated with citizen development, and how can they be managed? Whoever wants to
Yeah,
go first.
so to start with, I think yeah, one common risk that everyone will be talking about is the security risk. So so there might be, like, unknowingly the citizen developers are not purely technical, so they may leave some vulnerabilities. And next one is the compliance related risk. So like whatever the government policies, all those things are there, so that they may not be aware, and then there is another risk. So the citizen developers may not be aware of. Then, other than that, the quality risks are data privacy risks. So, for example, if you like some data is very confidential and that should not be exposed. So, because a citizen developer will have a power to integrate to any system anywhere, so they should not just send the internal confidential data to outside, so outside the organization. And quality risks, like for example, there should be a uniformity with respect to the database design, UI design, UX design. So those risks need to be maintained. And finally, the maintenance risk. Just now I mentioned about the scalability. If at all properly it is not designed, so it will be very difficult to maintain. So if without following the proper standards, so these are the risks I suggest.
Um, thank you, Guru Prasad. Now we are going to head into questions and comments from the audience, and I see one from Matt Hubbard. He's talking about Shell's zoning model, which is designed to account for project risk and complexity. And May he wants you to talk further about this.
Yes, as I said in my previous answer, at Shell we have three zones, right? We have the green zone, which is comparable to PMI's views. The green zone, the fast track, which means that you have low complexity solutions. The citizen developer will be able to work it alone, allow it to develop the application with fewer controls implemented. The Amber Zone, that is assisted path in PMIs, uh, where the IT experts, it is important to help them with some controls that will be need to put in place, like the user access management, um or audit logging, or data user data restrictions, uh, and this zone is for medium complexity applications that should maybe there is external parts accessing it. We have connections with another platforms, um, or the data is confidential. And we have the third zone, that is the red zone, which is IT delivery allow it, just professional developers, whereas the complexity of the application is high, and the data probably is most confidential data, and it is a business critical process, or a financial compliance, uh, uh, it is being impacted. So we have these kind of free zones that you can assess with some questions regarding data, regarding complexity, regarding regulations, and uh, we answer this on, and the assessment uh, show us on where our application that we are ideating to develop fits. If it's green zone, okay, I am the developer. I will move on with this, publish and give us access who needs to access my application. If it's Amber Zone, I need to be aligned with the controls that I need to implement. And I need to be in partnership with IT members to give them an overview about the application and to allow the IT members to track these applications that is it is in Amber Zone. And the red zone, you can develop via local no code platform, but only professional developers uh, could work on projects like this.
Thank you. And we have a follow-up question from Matt again. Sorry. So he wants to know who determines which zone the project will be assigned to. I mean, who? Yeah. Can you please elaborate on that as well?
Yeah, we have the assessments, the risk zone assessment. It was it is a bunch of questions regarding complexity, regarding the data that it is being used, and I guess that there is a formula, and in the end, you are determined where the application fits in. So the DIY global team created all these assessments, and we have to run to understand where I can go.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your experience, Malin. And there is another question from Noel Carroll. He wants to know what were the panelists' experience with convincing senior leaders to adopt citizen development. Which is a very interesting question. So can you please all three of you share your experience with this?
Absolutely. I mean, maybe I can take a shot at that. Um, and I think that I think at the beginning we talked about digital transformation is the top initiative, right, on every company's uh, agenda, and I think as we mentioned, but you talk to the companies or organizations, even a lot of report, right, coming from McKinsey, a lot of research report talking about the high failure rate of digital transformation and not delivering the objective, and the top reasons being there's not enough developers, right? As a matter of fact, right? As a matter of fact, when I actually talk about system developers development trend, and actually like in the U.S., right? If you take a look at the statistic from the U.S. published by the Department of Labor, right? There's about 36% of the people in the U.S. have college degree. About 90% they have a high school diploma, right? So now why we have that developer shortage, and that's a top challenge right now on every executive's mindset right now, right? And the reason is that 36% was college degree, maybe only 1% had computer science trained. So that means everybody's fighting for that 1%, right? Everybody's not being able to move their digital transformation program fast, forward. And but we are talking about, in a way, right? What can we empower and mobilize, right? Not just the our work, I mean, team members, right, who have computer science degree to be able to do that, right? So I think from an executive perspective, right, everybody know about this problem. We talked to one of the Fortune 100, even a CFO say, even this company Last year, they have $1.8 billion profit. We talk about profit. And the CFO say we have to stop. We cannot continue to just hire developers this way. And the other challenge is the CFO say it's not about we cannot afford. It's about the average tenure of some of the developers become 9 months. They come in, they start writing some code, and they leave, right? Even before they finish, right? So I think this is actually a very I mean, it's coming from. This is not about just solving one tactical problem. This actually has to do with a company, right? The whole company strategic direction and roadmap, right? So I think like I say, found a lot of executive, they do understand, they do understand they are really the talent shortage on the developer side, right? Is really a huge, I mean, a roadblock, right? And you need to find a way, and need to find a way to overcome that. And then, as we mentioned at the beginning, how we do software development in the last 40 years has not changed. We rely on people know the requirements, explain that to developers, and translate into code, and you go back and forth, right? But what if we are able to empower, right? The people know the requirement, they can actually build. They may not be able to. I mean, this we have to be realistic, right? Citizen developers are not going to be able to build 100% of different use cases, right? But the thing is, how can we relieve IT, right, from not having to build a lot of this more low-level, daily, mundane type of application, offload that so IT can go on and to do more innovative, right, AI and other things as well, right? So I think, I mean, in a way to, you know, I think it's not that executive getting support from executive is actually executive knows is a challenge, but they may not be aware that the real value and the promise that system development could bring, right? And of course, from the IT leadership perspective, right, they would think, oh, can this go prime time? Can this really be sustainable, right? And that's why we talk about this governance topic here today.
Got it. Guru Prasad and May, if you want to add anything further to that.
Yeah. So the main catching point here is that the speed at which we deliver the solutions. So there, most of the people were convinced, and then second one is the budget. So compared to the speed at which we are delivering the solutions, and then the cost of that solution is really competitive when it comes to the traditional development model. And finally, so like Jesse told, like empowering their users, so their actual functional experts in building the solution. So in with one of our customers, so the director, the C-level executive himself, he's able to build the solution on his own. So then, so the way he thinks at the citizen development. So these are the parameters that I see that more convincing factors for the organizations to adapt citizen development.
Yeah, I'd like to add something. After the company has all the governance well defined and in place, the company must ensure that the citizen development is aligned with the strategy of global strategy of the company, and it is part of the digital transformation agenda, and having the buy-in of the executives to support the program implementation. It is crucial to create a culture that empowers employees to become change makers and contribute to this digital transformation that the companies. Um, and this can be achieving by providing awareness, establishing a digital curriculum to upskill the staff, and fostering a effective citizen development community. In addition, an effective communication is the key. Promoting and celebrating successful business case are important to generate the enthusiasm and the energy around the citizen development, and also recognizing and rewarding employees involved in these citizen development projects is crucial to inspiring others, to inspiring new adopters. These initiatives demonstrate the value of the citizen development brings to the company, and it leverages the organic growth of the community, attracting individuals interested in being part of this movement. At Shells, we have the DIY solution of the month, and the developer and also the DIY coach wins. They receive a award, a gift card from Amazon to buy wherever you want. That's very interesting because it inspire others to do and to be part of this movement, this citizen development journey.
Um, Thank you. Thank you for sharing this, May. And I think we have time for maybe one last question, which is kind of tangential to today's topic. Ricky is asking, how can organizations measure the success of their citizen development initiatives, and what metrics should they track to monitor progress and identify areas for improvement? Uh, Guru Prasad, do you want to take this?
The metrics means like so there are a lot of metrics that we can measure. So one is like what I can say is that uh, the end user satisfaction. So when we are conducting the survey, so how quickly the we are developing the solutions and delivering the solutions. So when we are taking that metric, so from the end users, so that satisfaction is one metric that we can just consider. Second one is like always I am telling about that schedule, the duration of the project, or what are the initiatives that we are initiating, then budget, whatever the cost that we are doing that one, and then the overall maintenance of overall ownership of the ownership cost of this solution, like for example the maintenance cost, all those things. These are the few metrics that I consider that it will right away just justify the initiatives of the citizen development.
Uh, Thank you for sharing that, Guru Prasad. I think we are close to time, and if we are close to time for today's session. We have two more sessions going on in Citizen Development Week, tomorrow and day after. So tomorrow's is going to be on measuring ROI and tracking KPIs for citizen development, and the session on 21st April is going to be a Q&A session with experts in citizen development field. Please join us tomorrow and day after as well. And thank you, Jesse, Guru Prasad, and May for joining us today and sharing all your valuable insights. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.